True or false, remote first yields isolation?
Not at levels.
Hi, I'm Campbell Baron, and the purpose of this video is to document team dynamics at Levels Health. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you're aware of the stereotype that remote work feels isolating. Working remotely makes it harder to connect with your team. It makes it harder to build camaraderie, harder to foster meaningful connections with your coworkers. All of the above being vital to the success of any culture at any company. So, with that being said, is that really the case? Is that stereotype really true? Not at Levels. And in this video, you'll find out why. Can you recall your first day at Levels?
Honestly, I was a little bit nervous coming to Levels because I came from a place where it was in person, and I was like, what are we going to do if I can't, stop by someone's desk and ask them a question?
And then first day I was like, oh wow, I've already talked to like 5 people today.
One thing that we do that I really love is we start with a spotlight article on every person who joins the company, which is where a journalist actually interviews you in detail and then writes a beautiful article about you and your life history and your story.
This is a cool lens to get a view into someone's life beyond their work resume, beyond their LinkedIn, where they grew up, what's interesting about their story, how they came to get into this role, and kind of give a little bit of background.
And so just that little extra effort that everyone put forth to make me feel welcome and belonging on the team made such an impact.
I was like, okay, my priorities for the first month are to feel connected to this team, and it was an objective for me.
Once they get started, it's just a matter of participation.
Sure.
There's an element of putting themselves out there. There's an element of us reaching out and getting to know who they are.
I got assigned actually a buddy when I first joined Levels. These one-on-ones were only supposed to be for like the first month or so every week, just until I got acquainted, and we still do them.
Additionally, I think people are very proactive about reaching out to new members of the team to set up intro calls with them just to get to know each other.
And how do you communicate with your team members digitally?
The communication itself starts happening when we get into Threads, which is our asynchronous communication tool. We use this kind of like other companies might use email or Slack.
It allows everyone to have visibility to everything going on if they're following that forum in Threads. So if I ever wanted to see what the engineering team is up to, I would be able to just check in on the engineering thread.
And I actually just created a forum this week called Chat Outdoors to encourage people to post their weekend adventures of skiing or hiking or any adventurous thing.
And we use Notion for any of our documentation.
When memos are put out, people will add comments, or at the bottom of documents, people will add like Mercy's thoughts, and I'll write down everything that I was thinking about through the memo.
Because everything is documented and because everyone's, sharing, and I'm able to kind of go back in time. So I actually felt like I met everyone and felt more connected to them quicker than I possibly ever could have.
Loom for asynchronous video communication, that has been a godsend. I cannot imagine doing my job without Loom.
In our third week at Levels, we ask everyone to only communicate for 1 week through Loom videos.
Interesting.
And so you can imagine if you're maybe, recording 100 to 200 Loom videos during that week and posting all of them to Threads, people are really going to get to know you and the tone of your voice and your personality a little bit.
We communicate even more because we're not together and there's no, let me just stop by your desk really quickly to drop this off or mention this thing to you.
I personally want that, is to be able to connect with my coworkers on a deeper level, even if I'm not seeing them face to face every day.
Yeah.
And so building in these little ways to learn about people outside of just what they do in a day-to-day job. And I found that through Threads, we're doing that through one-on-ones, through coffee chats, through games.
I think also our Friday forums breed a lot of camaraderie because it's just so fun to see all the hype from the week and see people's enthusiastic reactions.
I was like a Friday forum fangirl before I started at Levels.
You get to know a lot about people. Like, I never would have known that Chris lived on a farm if he wasn't like, yeah, this weekend I'm gonna like go do some farm stuff. Like, that's really cool, and we've had numerous conversations about it since.
It's wonderful to work in a company where everyone's door is metaphorically open all the time.
I heard you started this trend as it pertains to in-person meetups and co-living. I believe you and Steph rented an Airbnb in San Diego for the month. So how did that come about?
Steph reached out to me because we had our start on the same day, and she was like, we should probably just get to know each other if we're going through this together.
Yep.
And we ended up hitting it off. We had a lot in common.
Helena and I decided to spend a month in San Diego together. And so that was not part of protocol. That was not part of the culture. No one suggested doing that. But we both said, hey, like, we're in places in life where we can decide to, move into an Airbnb together for a month and co-work.
And then it turned into like, okay, are we doing this? We're doing this.
We got very close, both through coffee chats on Zoom as well as after spending the month in San Diego together. And we're actually, we're doing it again. We're going to the Caribbean in a few weeks to spend another 2 weeks together. And so
round 2, let's go.
So this is happening really organically all over the company for people who want to. Andrew, our head of engineering, has created a Notion document where people can literally sign up on a calendar to come visit him in his house in Durango, which is amazing.
So, Ms., it seems like Levels has made this conscious effort not to make meetups mandatory. Can you say more about that?
When we hire and when we kind of set out our hiring philosophy, we specifically say that this is a remote job and we don't expect you to be in person anywhere. We don't want to create an environment where the social aspect of the job is a requirement to doing your job well.
We have a Threads channel called Meetups, and pretty much people who are going to be traveling will post like, I'll be in this city from these dates to these dates if anyone wants to meet up.
And someone's like, hey, I'm going to have lunch with this person at this place on Thursday. Anyone else want to join us?
If you all happen to be in New York and there's a group of people that lives within a 10-mile radius, why not meet up?
Right.
It's been fun to watch this happen organically. A couple of weeks ago, 2 team members ran into each other on the street in Colombia.
I met Jesse, who I work closely with, in Mexico City, and recently met John and Jackie in Bogota. So I've had the opportunity to participate in some of those meetups.
So that was the coolest thing ever because, I mean, here we are in Bogota and got to meet John's family, and he took us on an amazing day to hike and do all these fun things.
And this is a great segue to Levels Bingo.
Yeah, this bingo idea came from Helena. She spun it up, and it was as simple as a Notion table that acted as a bingo card. And the goal was to see over the course of a year who could meet the most people in person.
At the end of every year, whoever met the most people gets a prize, and then the board clears and it starts over for the next year, because otherwise people who just joined are never going to catch up.
I think we were, including myself, surprised to find out how many individuals we had spent time with in person, despite this remote asynchronous culture.
It would be easy for me to be very rose-colored glasses-y and say, oh, it's perfect and it's easy and this works for everybody. And that's not true. There are people that really do thrive in in-person environments. And I do think that take the time to get to know your own ideal work environment.
And at the center of Levels is this idea to treat people like adults, right? How does that carry over into the social side of things?
We believe so strongly that it is important to treat people like adults and for people to have their own autonomy. And so that actually really extends into how we approach community and social. We really want it to be self-directed and autonomous.
So essentially you believe that in-person meetups and events among team members are best organized organically.
We've steered away from the events that tend to zap energy out of people. Being on Zoom is emotionally draining, and you can do a lot of these like games or virtual events or team happy hours at once a week that on the surface sound like a really good way to stay connected. But in reality, you've just worked a whole day. It's a Thursday or Friday evening, and now you have to like go get a drink and sit in front of your camera for an hour to interact with your team.
How would you describe your relationship with your coworkers?
From day one or week one or month one with these individuals, I absolutely just felt like I had found my people.
I feel super close to everyone at Levels, and it happened really quickly. And I was thinking about that like a month in. I was like, how do I feel like I know all of these people already so well?
It's just been fostered through like these communication channels that we have. Like, we are so open. Everyone is so smart. Everyone is so respectful.
Someone is always there to talk to get clarification on. And so even though I have full control over my time, I never feel alone or isolated.
What would you say to a potential hire, right, who is perhaps hesitant about the remote first approach, concerned that they'll be lonely and that they won't connect with others on the team?
I would say you're wrong. No, it's super true though.
Yeah, totally false. I actually did have a candidate recently. You tell me, I'm concerned that I'm going to be very isolated and like maybe I'll just make friends outside of work. And I was like, okay, so We have all these things.
I feel incredibly close and connected with the people I work with. I'm very happy, and I am a pretty social person.
Now that you're on the other side of the remote first world, would you ever go back?
No, I'm never going back. I think that if anything, like Levels is proof that like you don't need to do that, at least in this industry.
I don't think it's a remote thing. It's a Levels thing.
So I guess to conclude, remote first at Levels isn't isolating. The benefits outweigh the positives, but you have to put the effort in.
The benefits that I've felt of being able to plug into work and feel connected to my teammates and know who they are, but also have the space from work is incredibly freeing and empowering. It's not a place where I feel lonely at work or that I think any of our team members do. There's a fair amount of interaction and connection if you want it, and you can engage in it as much as you'd like.